The Valdran Empire had stood for 3,000 years, its crystalline spires reaching toward twin suns that painted the sky in shades of violet and gold. In all that time, no outsider had ever dared touch the Sharvok, the sacred wolf predator, that served as both guardian and symbol of the Empress's divine right to rule, until Garen Holt did exactly that. The human Foreman stood in the imperial courtyard, his weathered hands still covered in construction dust from the refinery project his crew was building. On the Empire's outer moon, he'd been summoned to the palace to discuss labor disputes, but nobody had warned him about the creature that now lay between him and the throne room entrance. The Sharvok was magnificent, easily twice the size of any earth wolf, with fur that seemed to absorb light itself, creating an aura of living shadow. 6 eyes, arranged in 2 rows, tracked every movement in the courtyard with predatory precision. Its fangs, each as long as a human forearm, gleamed like obsidian blades. Around Garen, the Valdran courtiers had frozen in terror. The beast had escaped its ceremonial chains during a routine feeding, and now blocked the only entrance to the throne room where Empress Valera awaited her scheduled audiences. Palace guards stood at a distance, their energy weapons raised but hands trembling. Everyone knew the law. To harm the Sharvok meant death. To let it harm the Empress also meant death. They were paralyzed by their own reverence. Garen, however, had grown up on the agricultural colonies of Proxima, where livestock could weigh 3 tons and had temperaments to match. He'd worked construction sites on 12 different worlds, dealt with labor disputes that nearly sparked wars, and once talked down a Krellian war chief who'd wanted to execute his entire crew over a misunderstood gesture. A big dog, sacred or not, didn't particularly intimidate him. Easy there, big fellow, Garen said, his voice calm and low. He took a slow step forward. The Sharvok's lips peeled back, revealing rows of teeth that could tear through titanium plating. A rumble emerged from its chest, not quite a growl, but a warning that resonated in the bones of everyone present. "Someone stop him," hissed a courtier in accented standard. "The Empress will have us all executed." Garen ignored them. He'd learned long ago that panic was contagious, and the surest way to get killed by a dangerous animal was to act like prey. Instead, he noticed what the Valdrans, in their terror, had missed. The Sharvok was favoring its right front paw, and there was a slight discharge of bioluminescent fluid from between its digits, the Valdran equivalent of blood. "You're hurt, aren't you?" Garen muttered, taking another careful step. The creature's 6 eyes locked onto him, but something in its posture shifted. Curiosity, perhaps, or confusion at this strange being that approached without fear. Garen knelt slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. He extended one hand, palm up, letting the Sharvok catch his scent. The creature's nostrils flared, twin slits that glowed faintly orange in the dim courtyard. Behind him, Garen heard the whisper of drawn weapons. The guards were preparing to shoot him the moment he made a threatening move toward the sacred beast. "That's it," Garen whispered, as the Sharvok's massive head lowered toward his hand. Its breath was hot, smelling of copper and ozone. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Then, impossibly, the creature's rough tongue, covered in hundreds of tiny barbs designed for stripping meat from bone, gently licked Garen's palm. Garen smiled. "There we go. Now let's see that paw." Moving with the kind of confidence that came from years of working with his hands, Garen gently lifted the injured paw. Embedded between the pads was a shard of ceremonial crystal, probably from the broken chains. The Sharvok whined, a sound that seemed far too vulnerable for such a fearsome predator. "Hold still," Garen said, and with a quick, practiced motion, he extracted the shard. The Sharvok yelped but didn't pull away. Instead, as Garen used his work rag to wrap the wounded paw, the creature did something that made every Valdran present gasp in unified shock. It lay down and rested its enormous head on Garen's knee. The throne room doors burst open. Empress Valera emerged, her forearms spread in alarm, her crested head fins flushed deep purple with concern. She was tall, even for a Valdran, and her ceremonial robes flowed around her like liquid starlight. "What is the meaning of—" she began, then stopped. Her sacred guardian, the untouchable Sharvok, lay contentedly in the lap of a dusty human construction worker, receiving scratches behind its ears and making a sound disturbingly similar to a purr. Garen looked up and offered a tired smile. "Your Majesty." Sorry about the delay. Your guard dog had a splinter. The silence that followed was absolute. Then, to everyone's amazement, Empress Valira began to laugh. A sound like wind chimes in a crystal garden. 3,000 years, she said, descending the steps toward Garen. 3,000 years of prophecy and tradition, and the Sharvok chooses a human. A construction foreman, no less. Garen stood carefully, and the Sharvok rose with him, pressing against his side like an affectionate hound. Chooses? Ma'am, I just helped with his paw. The Sharvok bonds only once in its lifetime, Valira explained, her translator rendering her amusement clearly. According to our oldest laws, whoever the beast chooses must serve as the royal protector, advisor and guardian to the throne. Garen blinked. I have a refinery to build. You had a refinery to build, Valira corrected, her eyes gleaming with something that might have been mischief. The Sharvok has made its choice, and even an empress cannot overrule the sacred bond. Besides, she added, looking at her cowering court with barely concealed disdain, I could use an advisor who isn't afraid to act when tradition becomes paralysis. Garen looked down at the massive predator now sitting obediently at his side, then back at the Empress, then at the shocked faces of the assembled court. Does the job come with health insurance? He asked. Empress Valira's laugh echoed through the courtyard once more. I believe, Foreman Holt, that you and I are going to change this empire significantly. As it turned out, she was right. Within a year, Garen Holt and his constant companion, the Sharvok, would help negotiate the most comprehensive labor reforms in Valdran history, mediate 3 interstellar conflicts, and accidentally start a cultural revolution by proving that sometimes the most sacred traditions needed nothing more than a practical human touch. But that day, in the courtyard, all Garen knew was that he'd helped a hurt animal, and somehow that simple act of compassion had changed his fate forever. Such was the way of humanity, stumbling into destiny one good deed at a time.